Assalamu alaikum everyone, welcome back to another episode with me. I am Kelly and I'm so happy to have you here. This episode is a retake of Becoming a Muslim, Setting Healthy Boundaries. This is a interesting topic for me, setting healthy boundaries, because it is something that I had to be in practice of doing, especially earlier on. When I think about setting healthy boundaries with people that are super close to me, I want to break it up in three different groups. The first group is my friends, so I'm speaking to my inner circle, and my siblings. And then I have my parents, and then I have the Muslim community. And when I speak about the Muslim community, that is because I was super grateful, alhamdulillah, to have a group of women who are converts, reverts, who came together, who are a huge support system in my learning journey and growing. I actually took my shahada within this group, but though there are people that have really supported and elevated my growth in Islam, I've also had found myself setting healthy boundaries with women within this group and the leader organizer of the group, just so I can move forward, release any negative emotions or feelings, vibes that I may have had during conversations, connections with them. And to continue to build more of a stronger relationship and to be okay with showing who I am as a person and who I am as a Muslim. So starting off, let's start with part one, and that is with my friends and siblings. So a little bit about my friends. I have a close group, inner circle. Some of these people I've known since high school, elementary school, childhood, and then with my siblings, they're all very close in age. I'm 5 years older from my youngest sibling, and my oldest is about 2 years older, and we're all very like a year or 2, 3 years apart from each other. And I love it. It's such a great group to be a part of, because with my friends and my siblings and their friends, we all happen to have so many great gatherings, so many fun times. But that had to kind of shift and change a little bit, because I really wanted to communicate with them that I wanted to continue to hang out and have good times and create more memories, but I needed to be in a halal environment. Now, a halal environment, that changed for me as I was progressing and becoming more connected with my faith. When I converted into Islam, I told my family first, and then I started sharing it with my friends. My best friend is the friend that I hang out with all the time. I shared so many memories with her, and we did a variety of things. We explored, we discovered, we let our curiosity guide us, and it took us to many places, which I would say, reflecting and thinking about it now, were involved a lot of wildness and a little bit craziness, some of which, is including like partying late nights and things that would be considered haram. So when I first opened up with my friends, and especially my best friend, about what I wanted to do moving forward and how it is that I wanted to get together with everybody, the approach that I had with both these people, my siblings and my friends, was very direct. I think at first I had a soft approach, but then became very direct and brutally honest. And I think that was just the way I needed it to be when I was communicating to these two groups of people, because the bond and the connection was so deep and very strong, and everyone that I connect with was very headstrong. And so saying no wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. I remembered that was the first thing that I was in practice of doing, saying just, the word no with my friends and with my siblings when they wanted to go out and involved drinking, late nights, maybe some, crazy partying stuff, and I no longer wanted to partake. Prior to all of this, I had already, decided to make the decision to move away from drinking alcohol. It was something that I really didn't see for myself, especially in the future, and I honestly just didn't see it serving me as well. So with that said, I remember talking to my friends and my siblings, like, hey, if we're going to go out, I'm going to go out, but I'm not going to drink. And I think when I became a Muslim, it probably hit a little bit deeper, but they were always very curious and asking a lot of questions like, oh, okay, like, is it just for today or is this an always thing? Like, I think I had a friend that might have mentioned, like, there's other, Muslims or other people that do drink. So can you drink? And like, I guess it's okay for you to drink. And I was very firm with my no. And I kept saying no. It was always hard to always be asked, like, what about today? Or what about next Friday? What about this party that's coming up? It's someone's birthday. Like, come on, you have to drink. And no, it wasn't as easy as just saying no for me. I felt like I had moments where I had to over-explain myself. I had to come up with a reason. And then I realized saying no wasn't just enough. It really wasn't. And I really needed to find a way to fully communicate and let them know, no, bottom line, like, this is how I feel, this is my goals, and this is what I do not want, and this is not serving me as a Muslim. And so that's how it really came off. I think I remember there was a moment where everyone was getting together in the backyard, and everyone wanted to, like, go out and do some drinking and just chill out. And I wasn't participating, and I blew up a little bit. I tweaked because nobody was really responding to my no's at this time. Throughout this time of me saying no to drinking. And I think I had like a final straw, and I just put my foot down and I said, this is ridiculous. And it made me feel really like an outsider, like an outcast. And it made me feel like if I was doing something wrong, but I knew it wasn't. I wasn't, because it was something that I really wanted. And so I was now at this point looking for respect. And so I communicated that. I remember saying, like, I'm okay to have a conversation to go out as long as you respect my boundaries and, like, you respect what it is that I do not want, because it makes me feel uncomfortable and because it no longer aligns with my goals. And so I remember with my girlfriends, I really started opening myself up, but being very direct about the things that I wanted and the impact that their actions and the things that they would say would have on me. And it was the same thing with my siblings. With my siblings, it was really brutal and honest, because we're siblings, so we have a different type of relationship where, we might get at each other a little bit more, and maybe respect goes out the window for a little bit. It's just normal. And I remember, like, asking, and I think at one point it might have come off as demanding, but I recall telling them, no should be something that I shouldn't have to explain. Like, no means no, and it's as simple as that. And I remember telling them again the same thing that I did with my friends, opening myself up and letting them know that this no longer aligns with my goals and with my vision and with the future things that I wanted to attract. So in the end, saying no was a stepping stone for me, but realizing very quickly, after the fact that it, having to explain myself so much, no wasn't enough. And I really needed to open myself up and really be honest and communicate my feelings and the impact that they would have on me. Now, moving on to my parents. With my parents, it wasn't so much about saying no. With my parents, opening up to them and having to put healthy boundaries in place was more about them keeping an open mind. I really wanted to show them respect and appreciation. So with me, and them, my approach was a little more softer. And by softer, I mean my tone, the amount of grace that I gave them. I also gave them a lot of empathy, because I put myself in their shoes and I understand that this could be a difficult change for them. At this time, I really wanted them to understand that, with this change, there might be different things that I no longer want to participate in as a family. And I think that was a tough one, because our family, when we get together, oftentimes, we can have a good time, but like alcohol is and can be involved. It's very casual and it's super normalized, and it's actually just normalized, and it's also some sort of like sense of like a status in like a family. I think in the Latin community, in a family Latin family home within the Latin community. And I say that because based on my experiences, whenever I attended another Hispanic event, if alcohol wasn't served, it was like seen to be a cheap thing. This is what I had observed. And so in my upbringing, throughout my time of like growing and attending these events, like alcohol was always involved casually and as a way as like having fun and just connecting and just being able to just have a good time with many people, with strangers. So with my family, I remember letting them know that when I wanted to commit to my religion, that I was open to having a conversation with them about what these family events could look like for me as far as participation goes. And I remember one of them was, I will go to this event, I will show face, I will present myself, I will say hi, but I also see myself leaving early. And at first they didn't really like it. They didn't understand that. But over time, as I kept communicating to them, like, this doesn't serve me. And at the end of the day, I appreciate your decisions and what you guys want to do. But this is my decision and this is what I want to do. And I will show face and show respect in that sense. But I will also like leave because there's certain things I just don't find fun and it doesn't really make me feel good. And so I think with that, my parents were able to casually accept it. They were able to listen in and allow me to, attend future events whenever I wanted and if I wanted. And the pressure was never there after that conversation. Another boundary that I had to have with my parents pretty early on after becoming a Muslim was to let them know that if we were to engage in my practices and in the rituals that are in place within Islam, the traditions and everything that I'm partaking in as a Muslim, I wanted them to keep an open mind. And so I remember distinctly telling both my parents, like, I will engage in this conversation if you're both open to keeping an open mind and not jumping the gun and not saying like the negative things about Islam and what people have heard. I think my parents, they both came into a lot of my conversations earlier on with the thought and the idea that everything was super strict and that women are very oppressed. And they thought basically all the things that were promoted and it's propaganda like terrorism and that women have no rights. So my parents were always engaging in conversations earlier on, based around that and what their thoughts were based on the things that they heard that were not true. And so I remember I said to them, if you're going to give me the opportunity to explain and to share my knowledge with you, then I would need you to keep an open mind. And if not, then that conversation was never going to be had. And that took a while. I think there was a lot of times where my parents just observed. They'd actually didn't engage in a lot of conversations with me. I think they were just learning and just kind of seeing what it is that I was doing and how it is that I was doing things. And that really made a huge difference. And being able to let them know that, okay, like we can continue on with our lives together in the same space because I was living with my parents at the time and we can just continue with whatever it is that we're doing, just live like a nice peaceful life. And it was great. I loved it. I appreciated the fact that my parents did take a pause. I actually was not hurt and offended that they didn't engage in conversations with me earlier on. I would have much rather, I actually would, prefer for them to have, what I'm trying to say is I'm happy that they chose that route versus them opening up conversation and then feeling the need to like shut me down and shut me out. I think that would have caused a lot of more of a distance between my parents and I, and as well as a lot of arguments and negativity within the household. So I'm really happy about that. And lastly, I want to speak to the Muslim community, the Halika group that I was a part of. I remember when I was connecting with them, there was a lot of confusion around the choices that I would make. And it wasn't just me. I remember seeing it among the other women. And again, it was this weird expectation that the more knowledge we've attained, the more action people wanted to see. There's always a sense of pressure too, that because everyone believes in a specific sect, that you have to believe in that specific sect. And people were not okay with just you stating that you were a Muslim, like you had to choose. And given that I just converted, and yes, I had already previous knowledge of like the religion and the sects and like what was going on, but just knowing that you walk into a space in a room of women who are supporting you in this journey, you kind of slowly start realizing that in a way there's a sense of pressure and expectation that was based off my experience, that though you think you can share certain things about your life and your own knowledge and what you've obtained, people can immediately shut it down if it doesn't abide based on like their beliefs and what they've been taught. And so I didn't really appreciate that. And so I remember when I was connecting with the head organizer of this group, there was a lot of pressure about, having to change my name, wearing the hijab immediately. And I remember communicating to her that I understand that the hijab is mandatory, but I also know that it's not for me. It's not questionable for me, but I also don't want to right now. And I remember saying that. I'm like, and I remember telling her that you telling me that I have to makes me feel really guilty and sad. And I honestly feel like I'm doing a horrible thing. And I remember just sharing my feelings, being super honest and transparent. Like, this doesn't make me feel good. And I remember her, she was shook. She was being very, attentive and also very open, and she was listening very closely. I can tell she was leaning in, she was apologizing, but I just know that I needed to communicate that. And I remember letting people know among the group, like the other women, that I don't think that there's a lot of stuff that you have to act on right away. I think that you can do the best that you can. And I remember thinking to them, like, I don't feel like I need to respond immediately. Like, I like to do more digging. So I remember we would have a meeting every week. We would learn, and the meeting would go on for hours, and it was awesome. It was so great. It was a lot of fun. We would be reading hadiths, reading from the Quran. We'd have lessons. We'd talk about stories, and then we talk about our own like challenges, the things that we're personally facing. And we learned so much from each other. And it was such an awesome group and meeting. But I remember also engaging in certain conversations that I didn't want anyone to think that just because they were going to say something that I had to commit, just because they were putting something in place for themselves, that I had to also put that in place for myself. I really honored my journey, and I remember communicating that and saying, like, I have no problem learning, and I love seeking knowledge. This is something that I'm super interested in and I want to continue doing, but I also don't want to feel pressured and feel like I'm doing something horrible for not acting immediately. And I remember when I communicated that, and with specific women throughout the group, I can see that there was a shift in the way everyone was connecting with me and communicating with me, and it just, the dialogue changed, not in a negative way, but in a positive way, because we were able to engage in conversations with me having to feel like I'm being demanded, or I'm being asked of something for myself, or being asked something in a way that I felt like I had to prove myself. And so I believe setting healthy boundaries in that way, being able to be clear and specific in what it is that I need, is so important. And having the ability to do that with my friends and siblings, my parents, and within the Muslim community, it really made a difference. I want to go back again to just saying no. This came from a book called Obstacles the Way. It's part of the book, and it's by Ryan Holiday. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. It's a great book, and it says something about don't let the negativity in. Don't let those emotions even get started. Just say no, no thank you. I can't afford to panic. This is a quote from the book, and this is something that Ryan Holiday had stated. And when I first read that, I was shook, because in my head I'm like, yeah, I don't understand sometimes the anxiety that I would feel when I felt like I couldn't say a word no, because saying no felt like it was being too harsh to decline someone. And if I did, I always felt like I had to explain myself. And so before I can even let these emotions rush in, I'm just now at peace with saying the word no, and it's a great starting point. It's still something I do till this day, to get in the practice of saying no, to continuously say no with confidence. And it's a great way to set healthy boundaries and to see if you need to set healthy boundaries with those close to you. And so it's been an amazing journey. Setting healthy boundaries, it can be very difficult. I know that there were moments with my friends where, again, they would test me, and I think subconsciously they would ask me a lot about, like, doing things, participating in things that weren't necessarily things that I wanted to do. And I think they were just testing the waters earlier on to see what was something that maybe I would participate in, like drinking. And with my siblings, it was the same thing. I think there's just a lot of questions and curiosity earlier on, which also led to tests and what I would describe as test and temptation. And that feeling of temptation is totally there. And I think just also relying in my faith in my belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in God, and being able to just think about that and my long-term goals, that really drove me and gave me the courage to set healthy boundaries. Because in the beginning, it's very difficult, but after you continue to say it over and over and over again and stand your ground to set those boundaries and claim the things that you need, the things that are going to serve you, that's what's really going to make a big difference in the learning journey. And I know that's something that made a huge difference in my self-growth after becoming a Muslim. So I'm very happy, and inshallah, if this is something you're struggling with, I highly again recommend to pick up the book Obstacles the Way. It talks a lot about life, adversity, challenges, how you can approach certain situations. It might give you different perspective. It's going to be linked in my YouTube channel, so if you want to check out this episode on YouTube, the link will be there attached to the video. And again, thank you for listening. Assalamu alaikum.